Oh, we're coming to you live. It's the Monday Night Spectacular, the final one before the regular season. This will be the final show before the big Tuesday Night Spectacular after the first Monday Night Football game of the season. Hope you all are joining us. We're going to talk about the four final teams that we have not discussed, a little bit of the news and notes around the league, and then we'll both make our predictions for the regular season, for the playoffs, and for the Super Bowl. It's a big show tonight. Welcome to the Fourth and Goal Sports Podcast.
What's up, everybody?
It's showtime!
What's up, everybody? How's everybody doing? How are you tonight, David?
Good evening, Chris. I'm doing good, buddy. Excited for the season. Ready for this, little break we're going to have before we go into the year here. Just in general, it's football season. It's time for things. Got fantasy football drafts happening all the time. Got news and notes coming out. Of course, tomorrow, all the teams have to be cut down to their 53-man roster. And then people will start getting signed to the practice squads. There's a lot of players that are going to have to go through waivers. Some can be signed outright, depending on how long they've been in the league. And had a couple of big notes today that I saw. CeeDee Lamb signed a 4-year contract extension finally with the Dallas Cowboys, which is one of the 3 contracts that they needed to get done. They still have not extended Dak Prescott. They still have not extended Micah Parsons. But, that's a big one for the offense. That's the main primary weapon for Dak Prescott. And so, I think that's a good thing. I was concerned that it wasn't going to get done before the season began. The other news and note or a couple things that I saw, really interesting here. The Kansas City Chiefs have quite a few wide receivers already on, their roster currently. And some of the younger guys have really shown out in special teams, the return game, made some plays. There's some guys that they have been hanging on to that they have big expectations for. And yet today, the Chiefs signed Juju Smith-Schuster, who spent last season with the New England Patriots. He won the Super Bowl with them 2 years ago. So him and Patrick Mahomes are very familiar with each other. I think it's a good signing. They signed him for the league minimum because the Patriots have to pay him the rest of his salary, kind of like Russell Wilson's getting paid all his money from Denver, and he signed a small deal with the Steelers. And so that was interesting to me.
I also want to bring up is the Steelers. Right now, from what I'm hearing, Justin Fields could be the starter for week 1. There's so much things going out that they're not sure who's the better quarterback, Russell Wilson's or Justin Fields. Could this potentially shape up to be one of the worst moves Pittsburgh's done? I mean, on paper, they look very smart on paper. But what's transparent on the field right now is not making it look smart.
You have to remember that in the preseason, it is the coach's job to figure out who's going to be on the team without giving up too much of their plan. They got a new offensive coordinator, a guy who's been a proven good offensive coordinator in Arthur Smith when he was in Tennessee. The formula that they have, and I think will work, and that's why I think Russell Wilson's going to be the starter, is run the football, play defense, keep yourself in games, let Russ make a couple of plays every once in a while. Okay? That's the formula that worked in Seattle with Russell Wilson. It's a staple of what has worked for the Steelers for years. I know they became a high-flying act under Big Ben, Roethlisberger, but, we're not going to know what's really going on. They're going to get a test in game 1, They're playing Atlanta. Atlanta's got offensive firepower. They got them a quarterback that can deliver the ball. They can run the ball. They got defense now. They're going to get a test right out of the gate. If they manage to go into Atlanta which I believe they're going to Atlanta. They're not playing in Pittsburgh. Okay. If they go to Atlanta and win in Atlanta, depending on, what happens in that game, we're going to learn a lot about all these teams week one. Okay. There's a lot you're going to learn. You got new coaches, new quarterbacks, new systems, different players have moved, and it's like that every year. There's always a team that doesn't win a game in the postseason or doesn't win a game in the preseason, and they come out of the gate like a house on fire. There are teams that win every game in the preseason and stink it up like dog shit when they come out week one. So, I'm not going to put too much stock, and I don't think you should either, in what we witnessed during the preseason. I think that, especially when it comes to the new kickoff rule, I think everybody played it close to the vest. Okay. Nobody's going to put all their cards on the table for a preseason game. They're not Steve Spurrier. Okay. And so, and that's a joke, if anybody knows, when Spurrier was the head coach of the Washington then Redskins, they went off to Japan and put up like 50 points in the preseason. And everybody's like, oh, my God, Spurrier is a genius. And they get to the regular season, and they couldn't protect the quarterback. They couldn't run the football. They couldn't throw the football. They couldn't play defense. And in 2 years plus, he was out of there.
Yeah.
So, don't put too much stock in what's happened in the preseason. Just my advice.
No, I'm just going off the rumors I've been reading the last day and a half, and watching Stephen A. Smith went off on him pretty hard. So I'm just kind of curious, paying attention to see what happens for week one and see who's going to be the starter. Other news too is, man, ain't it crazy that Aaron Donald's retired still? Has that sink in yet?
Well, I mean, I didn't expect him to say he was retired and then come back as soon as the preseason was over.
I just watched a live video of him and Sean McCoy raced, and I mean, he smoked McCoy. Like, it's just kind of sad to see somebody that big, that fast, still to this day, smoking a little running back, and just know he's retired, and he still got it.
He got out while he was still healthy. He played long enough to make himself very wealthy. Now, it may be a mistake for him to retire this year because I'm not the only one that's picking the Rams to have an awesome, unbelievable season this year, And so we'll have to see how they do without him. They picked up a couple of dynamic defenders in the first and second round. And, you got Aaron Donald retired. You got Jason Kelce retired. How's that offensive line going to look for the Eagles? There's a lot of players that are not with their team anymore that are either, Pro Bowlers. They've been there for many, many years or whatever the case may be, that they've been replaced. They move on to another team. A lot happens, in the off season. And that's why we do these team breakdowns. And unless you got any news or notes that I missed,
nope,
we can start with the first team.
Who's our first team?
The first team tonight is going to be the Indianapolis Colts. And a lot of people think that the Colts really have a chance to make the playoffs, to be in the thick of it, of the division. They did not do a lot in free agency. They didn't really lose a whole heck of a lot. And I'm sure, a lot of people think that they have improved their team, but you've got a quarterback who only played 4 games last year. Now, he played in the final preseason game, and I thought he looked pretty good, but he takes off and runs. He's a Michael Vick, a Donovan McNabb, one of these guys that does not protect himself, when he takes off and runs. He doesn't get down and slide. He just has like a linebacker mentality running the football. But if he could stay healthy, this team nearly made the playoffs. They did not get eliminated from the playoff hunt until the final week of the season. Okay? And so, they lost. Gardner Minshew goes to the Raiders, but they bring in Joe Flacco, who led the Browns to the playoffs last year, coming off the couch. Now, they got Laquan Treadwell, but I'm not sure whether or not he is going to make the 53-man roster. He has bounced around quite a bit, as a wide receiver, in his time in the league. Eric Tomlinson at tight end tried to bolster their defense with Roquan Davis. And so, their draft picks, they took the first defender in the draft. I've been saying it was Dallas Turner, but it was actually Laiatu Latu. And, he has some health issues from when he was in college, and a doctor recommended that he don't play no more, but he played last year in college after they told him he shouldn't, and he played so well that the Colts decided to take a chance on him. And then they pick up Adonai Mitchell at wide receiver. They pair him with Pierce and Pittman Jr. and the tight ends that they have with this team. If the defense holds up its end of the bargain, the Colts are definitely a playoff contending team. And
go ahead.
Go ahead.
See, this is hard because if I look at the Colts throughout the whole league, I would say they're not a playoff team. But when I look at the Colts in that division and how that division played out last year, with the only true dominant team coming out of that division this year that we know 100% for sure is coming is Houston.
Okay. I have said, and of course, this is of course an opinion show, but I have said that I think that Jacksonville took a step back last year so they could take a big step forward this year.
No, I'm not saying that.
I mean, them and Houston, they're going to be battling. I think that this is going to be a situation where all of the teams in that division, I think Tennessee improved themselves the most. All these teams in that division are going to cannibalize each other.
Yeah.
In a race for the playoff spots that are going to be available. The division lead and possibly a playoff or a wild card team, maybe even two. But there's going to be, I think the AFC North is going to have a lot to say about that because they're going to be cannibalizing each other too. There are so many, with parity in the NFL, there are so many teams in the league that have a chance. They give their fans optimism and hope that they have a chance to make it. Of course, everybody's got to go through the big dogs in the AFC, the Buffalo Bills, the Baltimore Ravens, the Cincinnati Bengals, Kansas City Chiefs, So it's a long road to hoe, but every team really does have a chance, in that division to win the division or make it as a wild card.
Yeah. I'm not saying, I wasn't trying to say that, Jacksonville's not coming up. I'm just saying on paper right now. Like, we think Jacksonville is going to make us come back from what they were last year. Yeah. I think Tennessee is going to be a lot better than people think. But I'm just saying right now on paper for sure, the only team we could count on being that good right off the gate is Houston. And
I tend to agree. I mean, because they played so well that they're basically ahead of schedule, and then they are the first team. And I learned this today. They're the first team in the history of the NFL to add a double-digit sacker, 1,000-yard receiver, and 1,000-yard rusher in free agency in one offseason.
That's
when
crazy.
It comes to Houston. Okay, Stephon Diggs, Danielle Hunter, and Joe Mixon. And so they're not standing pat and saying, hey, we're just going to improve naturally. We're going to bring in some guys. And that's why I think that, Indianapolis will not win the division.
Yeah.
And I think Jacksonville and Tennessee are going to be pretty good. And so, I think the Colts may end up fourth best team in the division. And that's because of the inexperience of the quarterback, his propensity to get injured. If you look at their schedule, I mean, they've got a pretty tough schedule. They got to play Detroit. They got to play Buffalo. They got to go, they got to play against Pittsburgh. They got to go to Green Bay early in the season. Now, there's some shots in here that I think are gimmies. I think that New England and the Giants and, those are a couple of teams that they have, a real good chance of knocking around good if they're healthy. But when it comes to their own division, they're probably going to be, some splits. The Colts have always played Jacksonville tough. They've always played Tennessee tough. I wouldn't say necessarily that they played Houston tough over the last several years, even when Houston wasn't any good.
Yeah.
And so that's just, our take, I guess, on the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, I think to me, the best version of them would be Anthony Richardson getting full experience, staying healthy all season. And then, who knows, maybe injuries happen, some things take place, you sneak in the playoffs. But realistically, I agree with you. I think they're going to be the fourth team in that division.
And so that'll move us to the NFC.
How you doing, Jeremy? How's everything going?
Hey, buddy. We're going to talk real quick about the Carolina Panthers next. And, I didn't fill in the losses area other than the ones that I thought were big names, because they have really turned over this roster. I had no idea how much they had turned over the roster till you look at the additions that they have on the team. I knew they had Deontay Johnson and brought him over from the Steelers, but the offensive line has made a huge makeover. They needed to do that because, Bryce Young was running for his life last year. They got brand new linebacker core. They bolstered the secondary. The defense actually played pretty well last year, but they traded away their high-priced free agent or, their high-priced player that wanted a big contract in Brian Burns. He goes to the Giants. They lost Von Bell. He goes back to Cincinnati. DJ Chark goes to the Chargers. Hayden Hurst went to the Chargers. And then just an array of other players ended up elsewhere. I think that they drafted really well. They've got him a speedster in Xavier Leggett. He stays at home. He played, I believe, in at one of the Carolina schools. But they'll have to wait a little bit for Jonathan Brooks to be healthy. But anybody that watched Texas last year knows that Jonathan Brooks is a heck of a running back. And then this one here interested me was the tight end, Jatavian Sanders. He's got all the tools, to be, their starting tight end of the future. He's just a young kid right now, but he made some plays in college. And you look at their schedule, And unfortunately, they are playing, I call it Murderer's Row. They got Cincinnati, they got Kansas City, they got Philadelphia and Dallas. They got to go to, of course, to New Orleans and Atlanta in their division. At Denver is not going to be an easy game. I think that this team could be much more improved this year, but they're not going to have a record to show. I think the record's not going to be real favorable because of their schedule, but they probably got their quarterback in place, and he needs the experience. Okay, they've got a new head coach in place. He'll get his feet wet, and if the owner doesn't, fire another coach in mid-season for like the third year in a row, Carolina will have an opportunity to grow as a team and get better as they head into next season. But they're going to get plenty of experience, and they're going to play some of the big dogs in the league. Luckily, they get some of them at home, like Cincinnati, Kansas City have to go, and Dallas all have to go to Carolina. But I just don't see them having a very good record. I still think they'll be one of the worst teams in the league.
I agree.
And so, if you know about them, I'm going to go to the New England Patriots. And the Patriots played against the Commanders in the final game of the preseason. And we got a chance to see what Drake May is all about because Jacoby Brissett got hurt on the opening drive. And so, it looks like it's going to be Drake May is going to be the quarterback right out of the gate. And the interesting thing here is that they got a lot of turnover, which you can see, a lot of turnover. They added some players. They trying to fix their salary cap situation by letting some players go, like we talked about Juju going to the Chiefs. But we can't forget about Minton. I didn't list him on here. There's some people that think that he's going to be like the Kirk Cousins to RG3. He'll be like that to Drake May. If Drake May comes out and sets the world on fire, then he'll never see the field. But if he gets hurt, if something happens and he doesn't play well, they can throw the youngster in there. He's got a big arm. He's got a lot of talent, but he's super raw. And if he gets a chance to sit for a while, maybe
I will. This is where I think is dangerous for Drake May a little bit and should put some pressure on him because Milton is pretty familiar with this position. He actually started his college career with Michigan. And when he found in 2020, Michigan sucked because of COVID and everything else. He was the starting quarterback for Michigan that year and did horrible. So horrible that Michigan went and got a quarterback in the portal, and he actually transferred from Michigan to Tennessee and ended up winning the starting job down there and actually having a pretty impressive little bit of a career with them after Hooker left Tennessee. So he's been in this position before, sitting on the bench. And I've been watching some video in training camp of him. He's had some nice throws in training camp. But, I watched the highlights of Drake May in that preseason game, and he was making some good throws. So I'm curious to see how this is going to play out for New England. To me, let the best man get the job.
I think you're going to see a lot of effort from the New England Patriots team. everybody's got a lot of pride. Nobody's picking them to do anything. I'm not picking them to do anything. But they've got themselves a heck of a schedule. They got to go to Cincinnati. They got to go to San Francisco, to Chicago. Coming to New England, they got to face the Rams. They got to face Houston. Seattle comes to town. I think that this will be a team that they're going to be like Arizona last year. They'll be feisty, and they'll get a win here or there, but I don't see them, making a whole lot of noise. I think that they'll be one of the, lower recorded teams in the NFL this year. But, again, it's an opportunity for the quarterback to learn on the job. They'll have a whole new slate of draft picks next year. They can get into free agency and pick up some people because, they're fixing their salary cap situation. Now, I like KJ Osborne. He comes over from Minnesota. Austin Hooper is a good tight end. But their kicker did not look good. I know he was kicking some really long field goals in the game against the Commanders, but I just didn't think that Joey Sly is going to be a very good kicker for them. They may look to make a change here before they solidify their 53, but I just don't see New England having a big year at all.
Me either. I'm actually excited to pay attention to him though, because I do like Mayo. I always kind of, pulled for Brady, through the years because he was a Michigan alum. But I lived in Tennessee and graduated high school in Tennessee, so I had a connection, the UT. And Mayo actually played middle linebacker for Tennessee, and I've followed him through his whole career. So I'm actually excited to see him as a coach now for the New England, and I want to see if we can see the players buy in. Kind of like, with the Lions and Dan Campbell. Is this going to be another like Vegas and the Pierce? Are the players going to be playing harder and putting more effort than you've seen them do previous years with Belichick? Time will tell.
Yeah, I think it just, his message, for New England was just kind of worn out, Yeah. He ruled with an iron fist for a long time, and after a while, it's time to make a change. He was the head coach there for at least 20 plus years. I think it was 25, and so it was just time for him to get out and, start anew at a fresh location. And I think he'll get that opportunity next year. There will be, thanks to his exposure on television where he shows personality, he gets an opportunity to study some of the college players and doesn't have to pay as close attention to the NFL. And, he'll start fresh somewhere, sign a 4-year contract and, be the coach for at least 4 years somewhere where he has an opportunity to make a culture change, bring in some players, and he may end up with a ready-made team. If Philadelphia doesn't show out, if Dallas doesn't show out, both of those places were highlighted this offseason that there was a chance he could end up in either one of those. And here's another team that I know that he would be interested in coaching if Brian Daboll gets canned because of, sticking with, Daniel Jones at quarterback. They give him some weapons, but they had to give up Saquon Barkley. They just couldn't afford, to pay him and pay the defensive players to have a complete team.
But
so they brought in some players that are, they're not superstar names, but they get the job done. Okay? And they could end up with Drew Lock as their starter at some point because Daniel Jones won't stop turning the football over. I think Devin Singletary will be serviceable at running back. They've got some decent wide receivers. Of course, Malik Neighbors was drafted. They got Chris Manhertz and Jack Stoll come in at tight end for the retired Darren Waller. And they spent big money on the offensive line to protect Daniel Jones. They got Jermaine Illuminor from the Raiders, John Runyon come over from the Packers, and then the only thing I think they really wanted to keep Tyrod Taylor. If you watch the Hard Knocks offseason with the Giants, but I think Drew Lock is serviceable. At one point in time, he was going to be the franchise starter for Denver. They decided to go in another direction and get Russell Wilson, and so they traded him to Seattle. He played well on a Monday Night Football game last year. In fact, I think it was the Giants that they lit up. But when he was there, and so that's why he ends up here with New York. Tyler Newman, drafted at safety, going to be a good player for him. Tyrone Tracy, he's injured right now, but I had, Pat Kerwin and Jim Miller were talking about him possibly being the starter by season's end if he gets healthy and gets the opportunity. He has that kind of talent and skills. But you look at their schedule, just like we do with all the teams, kind of middle of the road a little bit, but they're playing the AFC East, and they're playing against the AFC North. And so because they're playing the North, because they're playing the East, the teams that they're playing in the NFC, are basically, the South. So they got to worry about Atlanta, and they got to go to Atlanta. They might have to worry about New Orleans, but they get New Orleans in, MetLife Stadium. But I think that this is at best a 7-10 team. And I think that there's a possibility that this will be Brian Daboll's last year there. They don't like to can head coaches, but after 2 years, they fired a coach. After 2 years, they fired a coach. This will be the third year of Brian Daboll being with the Giants. If they don't make the playoffs, I would be concerned if I was Brian Daboll.
It kind of sucks because it's not really – don't get me wrong, it's his fault to a certain extent, but he's not the one that has him in bed with Daniel Jones. He didn't give Daniel Jones that big-ass contract.
Well, he had to help agree to it. If he didn't want him as his quarterback, they would not have given that deal, to him. Him and the general manager are tied at the hip. They both came over from Buffalo together. Okay. So, they both have kind of the same idea of how they want to build this team. And, after he had what looked like a really good year, he just had a real bad year last year. And he can't afford to have 2 bad years in a row after they give him the big contract. And in preseason, he's throwing it on a pick six to the other team. You can't do that. Now, maybe he's just trying to make a play because it's the preseason. But they look at that stuff in the preseason as if it was the regular season. But maybe the player didn't feel the same way, and he didn't want to take the safety. So he just tossed it up for grabs, and he made a huge mistake.
Yeah. I did see that stat where he had little yardage and 2 picks.
Yeah. No quarterback for the New York Giants threw a touchdown pass in the preseason. Didn't matter whether it was Jones, Locke, or anybody else. Nobody could throw a touchdown pass.
And to me, that should be the red alarms going off. And I think you're kind of being generous, so maybe even saying 7 wins. It could be maybe even less. But hopefully the regular season ain't that bad for him. But right. I think New York – I'm not afraid to say it. I feel like the Giants have lost their way right now, and that organization's becoming a dumpster fire. And it's kind of sad to see because you're used to the Jets kind of in that scenario, for these years. But you haven't really seen the Giants this slow in a long, long time.
Well, and so here is, at this point, we're going to make our predictions for the season. Okay. I've got the divisional, I've got all of the division standings. I'm going to throw up the NFC first. Found a really neat program online where you could pick who was going to win based on where it was being played, the week of the year, the date, typical weather conditions for that time of year. And so it gave me a lot of insight into when I was making my picks. So if you'll throw that up there, then, we'll talk about the NFC. Maybe I'll get a little closer. Let's start with our division first and just go from there. I got the Detroit Lions winning 13 games. I think they'll be 13-4. But the NFC just feels loaded this year, and I think that because of it being loaded, they only get the 3 seed, which means they're going to have a home playoff game just like last year in the wild card round. In the division, Green Bay, we know they're going to be tough. The surprise here is the Chicago Bears. At 11-6, the 7th seed, it takes 11 wins to get in the playoffs in the NFC this year because there's going to be quite a few teams with really poor records. And if you look here at Minnesota Vikings, with Darnold starting, you don't have J.J. McCarthy. I got the Vikings going 5-12, Chris. Tell me what you think of the NFC North.
I got the Lions. Me and you right there in the Lions, 13-4. I actually had the Packers going 11-6, but I could see them going 12-5 too. The Bears, I still think finish 10-7 maybe. I will say Caleb Williams looks a lot better under center playing than I originally gave him credit in this offseason. So as of right now, I do think they have a chance at the wild card. I'm not certain they win 11 games. I still think he's going to have a roller coaster in some parts of the season just because he is a rookie quarterback and there is going to be parts where he's got to learn. And Minnesota, as right now with JJ, 5-12 is a pretty fair deal. If they had JJ, I would think they could get to 7 to maybe 9 wins. But without JJ, I think you're right on with Minnesota.
But we agree on the divisional as far as what place they all finish.
Yes.
All right. Let's move over here to the NFC South. I got the Atlanta Falcons going 12-5. They'll be the 4th seed, and winning the division. They'll get a home playoff game. The division winners from last year, I think they take a step back. They got a tougher schedule this season. Tampa Bay Buccaneers go only 6-11. And if they do, I think there's a high probability that Todd Bowles gets fired as the head coach of the Buccaneers. I got the Saints going 5-12. Dennis Allen will definitely be fired at the end of this year. I really have wanted to root for the New Orleans Saints. They were perennial winners for so many years with Drew Brees. Derek Carr is not Drew Brees. And Dennis Allen is not Sean Payton. Now, they brought in Clint Kubiak to be the offensive coordinator. And Derek Carr is familiar with his system, but I don't think it's going to matter. Their defense will be good. The offense will be lackluster. Alvin Kamara is an aging running back. I don't think they're going to run the ball as good as they would like, and that's going to lead to interceptions by the quarterback, trying to force it in there. That's what Derek Carr is known for. And then, for Carolina, once again, I think they'll be a better team, but not have, a much better record. I think they finished 2-15.
Yeah. We agree on all the places in this division, but I still think the Bucks could be a little bit better than 6-11. I think they could get to 10 wins, but with the NFC being as loaded and as good as it is, it's a good chance they still miss the playoffs just for that factor. But I'm still rooting for Baker.
In the NFC East, I got the Philadelphia Eagles rebounding from that poor finish last year. They'll get the number 2 seed in the playoffs. And, I think that Dallas misses the playoffs. There's a chance that Mike McCarthy gets fired. 8-9 Giants. Brian Daboll may get fired. The Commanders will be 7-10. They'll be an improving team with Jaden Daniels under center. He'll get a lot of experience. Their defense will be a lot better, but they're just playing a really tough schedule, and they're going to have to grow as a team, to get better than this record here.
Yeah, we agree with this too. I think the Eagles for sure win this division. I could definitely see them 13-4. I think the Cowboys are about that, if not worse. I think there's going to be a lot of drama because I think there could be some locker room drama now with Lamb getting the contract, and you still got Prescott, wanting all that money too. So, but the only thing I will say about this division is I've been hearing a lot of positive things about Jalen Daniels and the plays he's been able to make, and it wouldn't surprise me if the Commanders actually beat out the Giants for third place in this division.
Oh, I could see that. And then we get to the controversial one here, which is the NFC West.
This is going to be another fun division to watch.
Yeah, I still got the 49ers winning the division because of a head-to-head matchup with the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams are going to have a monster season. I think that their defense is going to be improved with all of the young players that they have added. Of course, you still got Matt Stafford back there rifling it. And if he's got a healthy Cooper Kupp, okay, and Puka Nacua is also healthy, the receiving core is dynamite for the Rams. They were able to show that they could establish the run and run the ball with authority last year with Kyron Williams. They bring in Blake Corum. That could be one heck of a 1-2 punch. I think that they have a schedule that will allow them, to put up this kind of record, and they'll be the 5th seed. So they'll have to go on the road in the playoffs, but the 49ers will get the first round bye, just as they did last year. And they'll have home field advantage. Will run through San Francisco in the NFC.
Yeah, I agree with this division. For sure. I think the Cardinals have a better year. I think they could be a little bit better. They might have a couple more wins than 8, but I still think they miss. And I want to see where Seattle's at, because I think Seattle could be a better team than 5 wins too. Depending, but I think this year to watch out for Seattle is their quarterback position, to see how that plays out for the season.
Yeah, the reason I have Seattle so low is, one, the division that they're in. Okay, I think Arizona is going to be much improved. You got Seattle with a brand new coach. Okay, yeah. And he's a defensive coach, not an offensive coach. We are in an offensive league, and, I know they added a couple of good defensive players, but they also jettisoned quite a few as well.
Yep.
Bobby Wagner left to go to the Commanders. They released Jamal Adams. Their pass rush was not on point last year. They had a lot of injuries when it came to the offensive side of the ball. Geno Smith did not back up his first year as a starter with another kind of like identical season. And he got injured as well. And so, but that breaks down the NFC. Let me get in the old folder here, and we'll get to the AFC standings. And I want to start with the toughest division in the AFC, which I think is the AFC North.
I would say that too.
And so I have the Baltimore Ravens going 11-6, getting the number 2 seed. You could see that the numbers are not as high up there when it comes to records as it was in the NFC. Okay. Yeah, so Baltimore gets the number 2 seed. Joe Burrow brings the Bengals back to the playoffs with a 10-7 record. They get the number 5 seed. Cleveland is in the thick of it, but I'm not sure what we're going to get out of Deshaun Watson. I think that there could be some impatience there, and we may see Jameis Winston, and we know Winston has a tendency to turn over the ball. And so half a dozen of one, 6 of the other, I think just above 500 is right where they're going to be. They're not going to have Nick Chubb the first 4 weeks of the year. They're going to have to rely on Jerome Brown to run the ball, or Jerome Ford to run the ball. And then Pittsburgh, we talked about the quarterback issues there. I think the defense will be great, as always, but the offense can struggle in the passing game. I think they'll run the ball pretty good, but the passing game is going to be a problem. And that's how I see the AFC North.
Yeah, same here.
Going to the AFC South, you can see 10-7 wins the division here with Houston. Jacksonville makes the playoffs at 9-8. Tennessee and Indianapolis struggle because of, just a variety of factors. I think that between the schedule and, I think that the quarterback is going to get hurt in Indianapolis. And while Joe Flacco played really well last year for the Browns, it'll be a whole different ball game if he gets in the game as the Colts starter. Tennessee and Indianapolis are both teams that are building. They want to be in a big hurry and get there just like Houston did last year, but I think it's going to take both of those teams some time. I expect that they will both be getting better and better over the next couple of years, but this year it's just not in the cards.
Yeah. The only thing I say is, to me, the one team that has potential to blow this prediction is Tennessee, is my opinion. They do have a high ceiling that they could reach, but the big question is, can they reach that this season? So I think I think you have it as a fair record. I think they might actually have more closer to 7-8 wins, but they're still a young building team.
Yep.
But now next year, I think Tennessee is going to be in a whole different position, and they're going to be on the radar, I think, by next year for sure, after this season.
Going to go down here to the AFC East. Buffalo, 10-7, gets the number 3 seed. Miami makes the playoffs again at 9-8, and they get the 7 seed. But, you're looking at Aaron Rodgers. You don't know whether or not he's going to stay healthy. I think that the New York Jets are the fool's gold of the NFL this year again. And then you look at the Patriots, young team, not a lot of playmakers. I think they'll be an improved team from the last couple of years, but the record's not going to show it.
I agree, but this is the one division where we don't agree on who wins it. I think Miami wins the division. I don't think Buffalo's there anymore to have that division or be predicted there. I think they've lost too many key players. And honestly, I think they get lucky that the Jets are the fool's gold because I think that's how they do sneak into the playoffs because of the Jets. But I will say, if Aaron Rodgers fool's gold our prediction and makes us eat our words here, they have a chance. They would have a chance to even make the playoffs before Buffalo if he stays healthy and can play close to the Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay the last couple of years. He don't need to be that Aaron Rodgers, but if he plays close to that level, I think that'd be enough to actually make the playoffs over the Bills. And this, because I'm not sold. Because look at last year with Diggs. They looked good, and then they looked horrible, then they looked okay. You know what I mean? And now with Diggs gone and other key players gone, I can't get behind the Bills and say they're still one of the top dogs in the AFC right now.
And that's okay. Once again, that's just our opinions vary. And we get to the AFC West. Two-time defending champs get the number 1 seed. They are 13-4. And, Denver is going to look pretty good at times this year with Bo Nix, but they're going to miss out on the playoffs. They'll be like last team out, with an 8-9 record. The Chargers 7-10, an improvement from last year, but they're a team that's got to build towards something. I think they'll be very dangerous next year once Harbaugh gets his full, culture and everything installed there. I think this will be an unbelievable division over the next couple of years. The Raiders, I just think that they keep searching for a quarterback, and they remind me of the Indianapolis Colts, okay? The Colts went from, what was it? They had Andrew Luck, and then they went through Jacoby Brissett, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan, and they just keep, and then Gardner Minshew. It was a new quarterback every year. They had Derek Carr. Then they had Jimmy Garoppolo. Now they're going to go with Gardner Minshew. I just think that changing the quarterback every year is counterproductive. I believe in Antonio Pierce's ability to get that defense playing dynamite. But the offense, I just don't see it. I know they've got some dynamic players. I think Zamir White will have a 1,000-yard rushing season. But they got Alexander Madison spelling him as the backup, and he is a fumble machine. And he will fumble right when you think the Raiders got a chance to win a game. Okay?
Yeah.
I know they got Devontae Adams. I know they drafted Brock Bowers. But Brock Bowers as a tight end is going to be one of those players that when he's on his game and they focus on him, he will put up some big numbers. Okay? But he's not Travis Kelce or Mark Andrews or Sam Laporta. And, there will be games where he just disappears. And they're going to double-team Devontae Adams. And that's why the Raiders end up in the cellar this year, because the Chargers and the Broncos have improved. And I can't really say that about the Raiders.
See, it's hard because I think the Raiders have improved a lot in a lot of different areas. But like what you're saying, kind of differs.
Where did they improve at?
What I'm meaning is, I think I felt like they added decent defensive players this year. They got one of the best. They got Wilkins on a D-line. That D-line is going to be one of the best in the NFL.
All right, and that's fine. But what about offensively? They lost their left tackle. They let their starting running back walk. Okay. They traded out their quarterback, and the guy that was supposed to be the heir apparent in Aiden O'Connell is going to end up the backup.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you.
Right.
What I'm trying to say is there are improvements to the defense that, to me, how I look at the Raiders, I think their offense was there. Except the Josh Jacobs. That was questionable because I would have probably paid him if I was in that position. But I will say Josh Jacobs was battling injuries the last few years, and he wanted a big bag from them. So I get that decision. But where I think they kind of killed all their progress is, once again, like you were saying, is trying to filter a quarterback that's been bounced around the league and hopes to carry him. And I think that's what keeps them down, just like you're saying. I think the Raiders are just scared to draft a QB because of all the bad history of them with drafting QBs. And I don't understand why O'Connor is not getting a chance to be the franchise QB when you drafted him. I mean, what did you draft this kid for? To sit there?
I don't know. The Raiders are very inconsistent about what it is that they're trying to do. Changing coaches all the time, different offensive coordinators, different defensive coordinators. It's just they're just kind of chaotic.
Yeah.
So, we'll have to see how it pans out. We could always be wrong about a lot of these things. And so here is Super Wild Card Weekend, okay? You got the 4-seed Houston Texans hosting the 5-seed Cincinnati Bengals. You can see the Bengals are highlighted. I got the Bengals beating Houston. I got Buffalo, who you had Buffalo not winning the division. You had the Dolphins winning the division. I got Buffalo beating Jacksonville in Buffalo in the first round of the playoffs. And I got Miami going to Baltimore and Baltimore knocking off Miami in the AFC. In the NFC, the Falcons are going to host the playoff game, but the Rams are for real. The Rams are the 5-seed. They're going to go to Atlanta and win the game. In a dream scenario for you, you get to knock off the Green Bay Packers in the first round of the playoffs after everybody talked about, is Green Bay going to win the division or is Detroit going to win the division? Who's going to go further in the playoff? All offseason. Detroit knocks off Green Bay. Now, Chicago makes the playoffs, but they got to go to Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is a more seasoned team. They got a veteran quarterback. They got Saquon Barkley running the football. I think he's going to have a huge year.
I think so,
and
too.
So those are the three teams that come out of the NFC. Of course, San Francisco's got the first round bye in the NFC. Kansas City with the first round bye in the NFC. In the divisional playoff round. Did it work?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. In the divisional playoff round, of course, you got Buffalo as the higher seed goes to Baltimore, and so Cincinnati has to go to Kansas City again. Cincinnati gets knocked off by Kansas City. Buffalo gets knocked off by the Baltimore Ravens. And so we'll have a rematch of the AFC Championship game from last year, only this time in Kansas City. Now, the Detroit Lions have to go on the road. Last year, they played the divisional playoff round at home, against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This year, they go on the road to Philadelphia, and they put it all together, and they knock off the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia. And then the Rams have to play their division opponent, the 49ers, in what will be a barn burner of a game. The 49ers come out on top. That's the reason that they were able to win the division, is by beating the Rams in the regular season. With the tied record, as far as the same record in their division, head-to-head matchup matters, and it costs the Rams a chance to get to the NFC Championship game, where we have again the rematch from last year. But this time, the Detroit Lions are going to go into San Francisco, and they are going to win the game. The Detroit Lions are going to the Super Bowl this year, Chris. Tell me how you feel about that.
I'm not going to say that because I'm not going to put myself in the jinx.
You don't want to say your team's going to make it? You think you're going to jinx your team?
I don't think I'm going to jinx the team. I think my team is going to make it.
Well, then why aren't you saying they're going to the Super Bowl?
Because I don't want to say those words.
Oh. Well, the Baltimore Ravens have to go to Kansas City. Kansas City's going to knock them off at Arrowhead, and we get the matchup that we should have got last year. The Kansas City Chiefs play against the Detroit Lions in Super Bowl 59. I give a score here. Kansas City Chiefs are going to win 3 straight Super Bowls. It's going to be a close game. I think Detroit has every opportunity to win the Super Bowl. Just the better team will win in the end, because either one of these teams will be, capable and have the ability to do it. I think they're both going to be outstanding this year. It's just a matter of the matchups this year will be different than they were in the last regular season game that we played them. Chiefs are going to have that speed. The defense that they had last year will be adequate compared to last year. And at 37-27, I got the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl against the Detroit Lions. What's your Super Bowl matchup, Chris?
I have a good feeling that this could be the Super Bowl matchup this year. But the Chiefs don't win.
Well, and that's fine. I understand where you're coming from. You're a Detroit Lion fan. There's no reason in your mind for you to say they're going to lose if they make it. Okay? They've never been there. And, so if they get there, really, they're playing with house money, but what kind of pressure is going to be on them? Because they haven't been there. They expected to get there last year. They took a step closer than they ever have. And now they're in the big game, okay? They've got their quarterback locked up for the long term, their left tackle locked up for the long term. They got their wide receiver locked up for the long term, young running backs, great defensive players. And just because they didn't get the number 1 seed, just because they had to go on the road, doesn't mean they don't have the ability and the players to come out on top.
For sure.
And so I could see that. And what a win it would be for them to knock off the 2-time defending Super Bowl champions and prevent the first three-peat. This is going to be something that's talked about throughout the year, is that the Kansas City Chiefs have won 2. Who can stand in their way? What team is going to knock them off? Cincinnati was built to do it, but they haven't the last couple of years. Baltimore was built to do it, and they didn't last year. Okay? Buffalo has been right on the edge of it, 13 seconds away, and they couldn't do it. Okay? And so I'm not saying that there's no chance that the Chiefs lose. I just think that Andy Reid has a plan. If they are healthy, in my opinion, the only reason they lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the Super Bowl several years ago is they weren't healthy. They had no offensive line, and Patrick Mahomes was running for his life and still throwing passes on the money, and the receivers are just dropping them.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a great season. I know I'm looking forward to it. I know you're looking forward to it. Any final thoughts on the playoffs, the Super Bowl, the season in general, Chris?
No, I'm honestly doing what I did last year, taking it week by week, game by game. I ain't thinking about Super Bowl. I ain't thinking about playoffs. I'm taking it week by week, and I'm going to enjoy this whole ride. That's exactly one reason why I wasn't really intrigued on picking them go to the Super Bowl because I'm not even worried about that. That's the last thing on my mind. Like that's my ultimate goal, but I'm just taking it for my own sanity week by week because at the end of the day, is what people forget, especially us people as fans and our diehard fans, is on paper and what have you seen with your eyes. You know what your team's capable of. You know what position they're in and what they're capable of. But here's the thing: there's always a thing, and I'm not going to say that word that no one can plan on that can come right in the middle of your season and just fuck your whole season up. So that's all I'm going to say.
Well, I think the Chiefs can go 0-2 and still get there. Because I think they're going to have a really tough road right out of the gate. They're two of their four biggest opponents that they're going to play this year are the first 2 weeks of the season. And they've got a wacky schedule. You know, they're going to be playing on, Black Friday after Thanksgiving. They're going to be playing on Wednesday on Christmas Day. They are in prime time 7 times, which is more than any other team in the league this year. Everybody wants to see them. Everybody's talking about them. And so I won't be surprised if they don't make it. Nobody's ever done it, And so just for fun, okay, since I'm making all the picks here and you're not, and you refuse to say anything, my backup Super Bowl matchup, okay, my backup Super Bowl matchup is I think we could see the Baltimore Ravens in the AFC taking on the Green Bay Packers in the NFC.
I don't think
that would be a very interesting matchup, but I think that those are two teams that can also get there. And
I'm not going to say Green Bay couldn't get there, but I would lean more to the Eagles. More so.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a good team. But that's my backup choices are Baltimore versus Green Bay. Would you like to make a backup prediction so you don't have to say Detroit goes to the Super Bowl?
I could see Baltimore making it, and I could see the Eagles making it if it ain't KC or Detroit. I think Green Bay.
If Baltimore plays Philadelphia, I'm taking Philadelphia. If Baltimore plays Green Bay, I'm taking Baltimore.
Oh, for sure.
So there you go. Those are Picks with David, if you will. Please join me next Thursday, not this Thursday, but the Thursday of the opening game of the season on my personal page where I will start making my picks for the season. We'll have my picks on both Thursday. I'll predict the Thursday and Friday night games. And then Sunday morning before all the games, Sunday and Monday, I'll have my second video on my page. Watch out for that, on my page there. And so it's a public page. You don't have to be my friend to find me. David Llewellyn on Facebook.
And I'll do my best to make sure I share his pick videos on Fourth and Goal Sports through the season as well. So that way when you're on Fourth and Goal Sports checking out the broadcast, you'll see his videos as well on there of him doing his pickings.
And I'll talk about who's going to win both head-to-head and against the spread because we're doing gambling as well. And then you can see us, should be, every Tuesday night, the day after a Monday night football game, where we'll go through and discuss the results from the previous weekend, and then we will also discuss the upcoming games for the next week of games. That's the Tuesday Night Spectacular. The first one will be the night after the first Monday Night Football game. So join us right here for a Fourth and Goal Sports Tuesday Night Spectaculars, where we'll break down, week 1 in the NFL and get you ready for week 2. Until then, Chris, thank you so much for hosting.
No problem. And thank you guys for joining us all off season. And I've been waiting for a long ass time to say this. Off season is officially over. Less than
10 days away.
10 days away. We have retired off season, and we're officially in the fucking season, boys. It's been a long time coming, and we're here. At the same time, it feels like it's been so long since football, but at the same time, it feels like, fuck, already?
Blink of an eye.
It's been great because, as a lot of our followers know, I started a landscape business, so I've been kind of like, man, fall's around the corner, end of the season. The slower months are coming. So it's kind of been bumming me out, but then, then I got football over here like, hey, just more time for football.
Good luck, everybody, on your fantasy football drafts as we get ready for the season. We'll see you again, next Thursday night. Everybody, Fourth and Goal Sports Podcast, the Tuesday Night Spectacular, the night after Monday Night Football. Thanks for joining us, and have a good night.
Have a good night, guys. We'll see you Tuesday for the first Tuesday Night Spectacular. Have a good one, David. Later, boys.